Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend, Denis. He's prepared to ignite.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas.
Hey, welcome to the show, Leadership is Changing. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Leaders everywhere confront similar obstacles because people are people, but everywhere you go, leaders are overwhelmed, disrupted, and under pressure. They run from email to email, meeting to meeting. Many leaders are not changing quick enough, which means they run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. Perhaps the show is taking our listeners' leadership to another level by finding their balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. I believe we don't have enough effective leaders in the world today, and if we can get the leaders to step up and lead change, then they can inspire real change. Hey listeners, it's now time to adapt in our fast-moving world. Hey listeners, great to have you here with me today, and this is the Ask Denis freestyle episode, which is happening once a week. I'm asked a question by our listeners, and I share my thoughts, insights, and experiences from working with many leaders around the globe. Listeners, if you haven't already checked out the actual Leadership is Changing podcast page or on Facebook, sorry, that's the group on Facebook or page on LinkedIn, then please come along. We'd love to see you on those different platforms. But I also want to just say to you, thank you for those who have done some awesome ratings and reviews of the podcast. Now, it's wonderful to see them come through. And if you haven't already done that, please go ahead and do so, because we'd love to get your rating and review on Apple. Or if you listen to this on Spotify, if you can put a rating, because that's all they allow you to do at the moment, that'd be great as well. So I really appreciate those who have done that. It really does help with the actual visibility of the actual podcast in the actual ranking charts as people are searching for different topics. Okay, today we're going to talk about a topic whereby it's about having the right people in the right roles. It's also getting the best out of people in those roles as well. John C. Maxwell, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he is an author of about 80 books, speaker, wonderful man. And I've studied him for about 30 years. One of his very first books is Develop the Leader Within You, Develop the Leaders Around You. But one that's really, really quite cool for you to listen to or to read is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And he shares some really wonderful things in that book in particular. But there's a quote that I want to share with you that he shares in a book called Leadership Gold. And it's more or less along the lines that I want to talk to you about today. And here it goes. Cats do what cats do. Ducks do what ducks do. And eagles do what eagles do. If you take a duck and ask it to do an eagle's job, shame on you. As a leader, your job is to help your ducks to become better ducks and your eagles better eagles, to put individuals in their right places and help them reach their potential. That's an awesome quote there by John Maxwell. And he's more or less saying there that we don't want to lead ducks do eagle jobs or eagles doing ducks jobs. They all have their own job to do. And it's actually identifying who they are and what they do and what's best for them. You see, listeners, we all can relate to this about yourself or your team. Ducks are great and will only ever be a duck. An eagle will always just be an eagle. And when I say just, some of them are fantastic eagles. And you can look at high performers as an eagle if you want to, or leaders as an eagle. But also, I'm sure there's plenty of ducks out there who would love to be eagles, but I'm not sure that they always can be. Why? Because they're a duck. And so when we look at people in the organization today, there are various people who will be a duck, whatever that role is. Others will be eagles, whatever the role is. Now, you can have one person who is skilled in a skill set and capability and experiences and so forth. Don't expect them to step into someone else's role, doing a role that's not theirs, that they have no skills in, they have no experience in. So that's what we're talking about here on that quote. What I'm noticing today, and I've been noticing over the last couple of years in particular, but it's getting stronger all the time as we look into it, is that board of directors, the CEO of an organization, are wondering whether their organization is in the right business today. Why? Because the pandemic and other things and things moving on in life, things get to change. And as I say in my opening, if you're not changing quick enough, then you run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. And so it's important to make sure that if you have a person that's got a certain skill set and capability and experiences and so forth, war stories, that we're utilizing that person well. And we're going to be smart about it. And so today, these boards and CEOs are starting to think about, first of all, are we in the right business? Number two, do we have the right organizational structure to meet that business and help that business move forward? But the third thing, which is really important, going back to today's discussion, do we have the right leadership structure and the right people in those leadership roles? When I am coaching people, executives and senior leaders and things like that, I ask that question often. Hey, do you think or do you know, or here's an even better question, when you think about your team, what are your thoughts on whether you have the right people in your team today? And for some of them, they go straight away and say, yeah. But pretty soon, well, after thinking about it a little bit more, the next day or the next coaching session, they come back to me and say, actually, I've been thinking about it a little bit more. Now that you've raised my awareness around it, I've noticed that I actually don't have the right people around me. There are some people who I do, and there's some people who are the right people, but they're actually lacking in some skills or capabilities. There's a little bit of a gap there. So my question there is, what can you do to develop them more in their roles or in the area so they can fly? Now, that could be right through from, we can strengthen them as a leader through books and podcasts and white papers and training workshops and coaching. We can even give them some opportunities, some projects, some initiatives and things like that to go and work on. You see, when an eagle flies, if you make that eagle even stronger, that eagle will have a better vision, will be able to see more, will be able to see a bigger picture because of flying higher. If you can give your people in your team the ability to be able to be better than what they are today, whether it be a duck or an eagle, whatever it is for you, it's going to be important to do that because that's when they will actually be the best that they can be and reach their potential or go towards reaching that potential. Listeners, as part of the world today, as some of the world is going to be observing Easter this weekend, and if you're not observing Easter, or whether you are, what I'd like you to do is to step back and reflect about your role. What are you doing today? Are you an eagle trying to do a duck's role, or are you a duck trying to do an eagle's role? Are you doing the right thing today? Is it the right role for you? Nothing worse than having someone who's talented in a whole lot of skills but doing the wrong role. They're not going to be happy. They're going to go home grumpy. They're going to be quite difficult to live with. So we're going to encourage you to this weekend to take time out to reflect about your role today. Is it the right thing for you? Think about your organization. Think about your team. What do the leaders around you need? What can you do to help develop them? Are they the people in the right roles today? Do I need to move them into a different role? Time and time again, I see people whereby they get labeled as low performers or there's a performance issue. They're actually in the wrong role.
When you put them into a different role and work with a different manager, wow, sometimes you see them fly and they're doing really, really well. And you go, oh, what happened there? It's a realization, understanding of who you got in the roles today and whether they're the right people. Now, sure, there's going to be people in roles and there's going to be some gaps. Gaps in the sense of maybe I need a new person into the team and to fill a gap. So that's new eyes and new experiences and new thoughts coming into the team. But yet again, there might be people already in those roles today, but they've got some gaps in their skill set and their capability. So what can we do to help develop them, as I said before? Please don't put a duck in an eagle's nest, because it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't work. It shouldn't happen that way at all. Be very clear about what you're wanting to do and the kind of people you want in your organization today. And if you can think about that clearly and put that in place and execute on the action plan, then you'll start to see your team fly and do really well and soar on to bigger things and reaching their potential. Listeners, if you haven't already put the review or rating around the Apple Podcasts, an Apple for this podcast, or a rating on Spotify, we would love you to go ahead and do that. To those of you observing Easter, happy Easter to you. And to those who are going on to the weekend, enjoy your weekend as well. Have a good one, and we'll talk again soon.
Hey, listeners, what we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Change is incredibly scary, especially with the unknown and unfamiliar territory. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing. Look out for the episodes as they're being released. Download them, have a listen, put a review and a rating. Feel free to share them with your friends, your family, and your network. Hey, if there's any feedback you'd like to give me about the show, or if there's a question you have for the Ask Denis Freestyle episode, then send me an email, dennis@leadingchangepartners.com. Hey, listeners, it's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.